Greetings and welcome to Module 5, Marketing Your Program Using Websites. The agenda for this module is actually twofold. Mostly we're going to be talking about career and technical program websites, but I also wanted to briefly mention about some community service marketing that you can do. And to go on our conversation we had last module, I believe, your student ambassadors or some of your star students would be ideal for this type of community service marketing, but you could also get your entire class involved. So one of the ones that we used to do in the program that I taught in was that we had a fashion marketing class. Now, luckily, I didn't actually teach that class because I know nothing about fashion. However, my students helped out. And this was where they would, the fashion marketing students, along with my students, would remodel a women's shelter. And then we used this, we would submit this to DECA, which is our student organization, for state competition. So just to give you an idea of trying to reach out into the community and do something, even a marketing class has ways in which they could do that kind of stuff. Here's another one where building a house for a city's affordable housing program. And so I know that many of the construction trades type programs out there do some stuff similar to this. So what happened with this one is that the city donated a lot. They gave them a $150,000 interest-free loan. They hired an architect to develop the plans. And then the drafting students designed the layout and the blueprints, or at least they had an architect help them in some way. And then the building trade students completed the excavation and the building, and the agriculture did the landscaping. They ended up selling the house, and then those programs were able to split a $37,000 profit. So I've mentioned this one because sometimes these community service projects could actually lead to making money for your program. Culinary can do all kinds of things. I found one where they were doing community education sessions called Sharpening Your Skills, which was a 2.5-hour adult education lesson on knife safety, and it was open to the community, and they advertised it in the paper. Iron Chef, which is a student demonstration sponsored event at a food festival that 12,000 people attended, and students compete for a $400 prize, and the prizes were donated by sponsors, and so it was kind of like an Iron Chef type of student demonstration that they had at an event. There was another one where there was an Iron Chef charity event, so that was they partnered with the Rotary Club and a Culinary Institute, a post-secondary institute, and brought in 4 chefs from the area restaurants. They brought in a local winery for tasting, and they charged $50 a head, and the food was donated by a local grocery store. And so all the proceeds went to a national charity and the local program. Now, by tying it to a national charity, just to give you kind of a marketing perspective on this, they were able to get this in the news because this was a big deal. And so they were able to get a little blurb in the paper about this particular event, which once again, that's great PR. As far as another culinary experience, Culinary Arts partnered with the American Red Cross and a foundation called the Quantum Foundation to help serve 350 people a 5-course meal. And they raised over $200,000 for the Haiti relief effort. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the kind of stuff you can do that gets your program out in the community, helps a charitable organization, and then sometimes you can get a little kickback to help your program as well. What we used to do at my technical center was there was a car show. And this was a big deal. I was very surprised on how big of a deal this became, but our automotive teacher is the one that came up with the idea, Mike Toney. And so the car show had 27 different car categories. It was $2 per spectator to attend. If you had a car, it cost $10 to put the car into the show. It was held in the tech center parking lot. Sponsors donated prizes for raffles. The auto and auto body program are the ones that actually ran the event. The health program conducted free blood pressure checks. They had a little station set up, to promote their program and do something for the community. The culinary arts people sold food. The marketing program developed the marketing campaign for the car show, and then local, and then the business program helped with the budget and sponsor communication. So that kind of gives you an idea how a tech center can kind of come together and work on this all together. Here's a business one. So this was a business and law program. They would have an annual golf tournament. So sports marketing class would organize it. Culinary arts would cook for it. The sponsors donated prizes. Raffles make money for the program. They raised over $13,000 for their CT programs. And over the last 8 years of doing this golf tournament, they've raised over $135,000 for their programs. There was another one where there was a law program or a criminal justice program that had a program softball event. So law enforcement instructors and students would go against the radio morning show, and they raised over $1,400 in food sales and ticket sales on that one. Now, some other events to kind of think about is your homeschool. So how in the world can you get into your homeschools? And so you need, if you're at a technical center, this should be a big priority of yours if it's not already. And you need to think about marketing as young as you possibly can. And so this is, I've already kind of mentioned it, but here is the actual picture of the teacher from a culinary arts program at a technical center reading green eggs and ham, and then magically making green eggs and ham, right? Here's that elementary coloring book, right? So yeah, it needs some updating. They've got an old, CRT monitor there, right? And maybe it's been updated since I found this. What we did at our technical center is we had a 5-5-5 program. And if I remember that, it's basically over the summer, 5th grade students experience 5 different CT programs in 5 days. And it was free for those 5th grade students, and lunch was provided and transportation. So it's quite an ordeal that you'd have to work out with the tech center, but it was very successful, and they really, the students enjoyed it and the teachers enjoyed it as well. Okay, so now that we talked a little bit about some community service type events that you may want to think about doing at some point as a teacher, let's talk about your program website. So we know that 93% of children ages 3 to 17 have access to a computer at home, and about 77% of those have internet at home. And they all have access to public libraries, and they all have access to school computers, unless they've, of course, lost those privileges. So some things to consider is that parents are very influential, and we need to try to appeal to their concerns and their curiosities about our program. Many students also initially hesitate to leave the homeschool. So it's hard to sometimes even get them into your program so they can see how cool it is. And so sometimes we have to get them into our program remotely. So we can do that through our program website. So I sometimes get some pushback on this, is why do we have to have some fancy program website? And I think these are 2 big reasons why, especially that second bullet about how students are hesitant. If you can find a way to push them to a website that has information on there, has the right type of information on there, and has plenty of pictures and hopefully some video, then there's a great chance that they may give your program a shot. But to walk into something blindly, we all don't typically do that anyways. I mean, we don't plan vacations just off of a brochure or a poster. We typically do heavy research online about the hotel we're staying at, how we're getting there, what type of activities and adventures await us. And so we look around and spend hours on the internet looking up the vacation that we hope to have. It's the same thing for students, and I think we need to stop ignoring that particular fact. I've been talking a lot in this particular class about getting business and industry on your side. And once again, very difficult to get these people into your classroom. However, if you can point them to a website that shows the wonderful things and the student successes that are happening in your program, there is a good chance there's a better chance that they will support you even if they've never walked into your particular classroom. Now, some very, very basics of web design, just so you know, is that typically when people look at websites, unless they are incredibly interested in what you have to say, they are not going to read all the text. And in fact, the further you scroll down on a web page, the less likely you're going to continue to read full sentences. What you see here is one of these eyeball trackers that have been placed on research subjects, and all they were asked to do is browse web pages. And so the areas that are red are the areas in where the majority of eyeballs tend to fall. And so we actually begin to see a pattern here. People look over at the left at the nav bar, so you can see they look there. They look over at the right for like the extra nav bar, the additional information. And then they look in the middle and they read, but they start to trail off, so you don't want a lot of text in your web page. You will also notice, once I tell you this, it'll be hard for you to avoid it, there's a thing called the F shape. And you'll notice that that's exactly what happens here. It looks almost like an F, the red part. And that's because we read all of what's on top. We go down, we read a little bit more of the second paragraph, but we don't always read the entire first sentence of that second paragraph. And then we barely ever read just the first few sentences of the following paragraphs. Here it is again. As you can see, the nav bar needs to be very clear, as you know this one is, and so the nav bar over on the left, very easy to see. Big information on the right, so you can see that they go left, they go right, they go center, but once again, they read the top, and then they just kind of trail off, and so you can see that F-shaped pattern start. So it's important when you're looking at initial web design that you understand the way people look at web pages. I've only provided you with two images related to this eyeball tracking software that they use to figure all this stuff out. But I encourage you to look more into web design so that you know what a web page should look like. So what could you potentially be using your program website for? Well, one, you can put your syllabus up there, your syllabi. You can put course descriptions. You can put all that labor market information that I've been asking you to collect, right? You can have a bio or a podcast or a video introduction. I think this is incredibly important that you have this kind of stuff. These kids are going to want to see and listen to you before they walk in the door. And so it helps them once again get over the anxiety and fear of getting away from the homeschool and going to the tech center or walking down the hallway to your particular program. It can also be a place where you can connect with parents in some type of discussion board or blog. You can have, it's where you put many of your videos for your absent students. So maybe if you have a lecture that you're doing and it's a short one, you have a student record it and you can upload it onto the web page. Some teachers do that. You can use it as a recruitment tool for interested students. So not only is it for your current students, but you can use it to recruit your other students. A virtual tour, however you want that to be, whether it's a video or just a bunch of pictures of your classroom and lab. Our career and tech ed labs many times are some of the most amazing rooms that are out there in the education system. And so to show them all the cool toys that they potentially could play with could be enticing. If you participate in student organizations, you could have your events calendar and successes on there. Pictures of student work so that they can see that you believe very strongly in your students' work and their achievement. And so that would look good for parents, business and industry, and for potential students. And then you could also have just your typical, FAQ, typical class day, maybe your rules, the way in which you manage your classroom, your educational philosophy. I mean, you could have all kinds of interesting stuff on here. Going back to the teacher bio, in case I don't mention it later, I can't remember if I do. you need to make sure that you highlight your past work experience, because I think a lot of these folks don't realize that you had probably an entirely other career related to the area in which you're teaching before you became a teacher. There's many mistruths and misconceptions about teachers out there, and I think if they knew how much experience and expertise you bring to the table, we would nip that real quick. So there's all kinds of ways in which you can record the explanation of your syllabus. This is a video, but I can't play it on here. But the one I'm using now to record my syllabus, and so I actually screenshot my syllabus, and it's a live recording of my screen, and so it's picking up not only what I'm saying, but also the movement of the mouse and the movement of the Word document, and so I can actually scroll through the Word document. And what I'm using now is not Jing or Cam Studio, it's actually QuickTime. So if you have a Mac, it comes with QuickTime Pro. But if you don't, if you have a PC, you can purchase QuickTime, and I believe it's called QuickTime Pro. You can look it up. But nonetheless, very important that you maybe do that you have your projects, that you scroll through them and explain your projects, that you explain your syllabus, and then you just put it on YouTube and you link that YouTube video into your website. It's pretty simple to do nowadays. So yeah, here's, I wasn't sure if I did this, but yep, so your teacher bio, all the stuff I mentioned, your awards, your honors, your hobbies, your interests. I always like to share those things, and I encourage you to do the same. You also could do a program-specific video that could be a marketing video, and so these are out there now. A lot of tech centers have kind of caught on to this, but if this isn't developed for you, you can develop your own. Quite frankly, if you have one of the newer iPhones with that amazing camera, it comes with iMovie, and you could literally make this entire thing on your phone if you wanted to, but you don't have to, but it's really cool. So you may want to think about doing a program-specific movie. So if you look here, some tips. One thing with web pages is you want to make sure that you keep them up to date. No dead links, no incomplete or outdated pages. This is the kind of stuff that usually happens with web pages, unfortunately. You got to remember that this thing is out there for the entire world to see. So you don't want it to become dated. It can get very embarrassing if you forget about your web page. You also want to have it peer-reviewed for spelling and diversity issues and biases and ease of use and any type of mistakes that are on there. And you need to ensure that it's Mac and PC friendly. Also, it's great if nowadays if it's mobile friendly. So there's great websites out there. The one that I'm using now is called Wix. And Wix, you can utilize their domain name, so you could have like drmanley.wix.com or whatever, or you can go in for like $10-15. You can buy your own domain name, and then you can put in ctadvocate.com, and it'll go to your Wix webpage. And what's great about Wix is that you can do all kinds of great stuff with Wix. It's so user friendly and drop and drag. So I'm not supported by them, but I'm just saying that's the one I'm using now, and it works great. So there's some things here that I wanted to show you. This is Branch's web page at one time, and it's a little dated, but it's still okay, right? It's got the nav bar on the left. It's got a little bit of text, but not an incredible amount of text. So then you can dive into the actual programs. But the reason I kept this one to show you was you got to be careful about what you say. If you look down to the left of the picture of the student, you will notice that it says, I am currently enrolled at the Kalamazoo Valley State University studying welding and fabrication. Okay, I'm pretty sure that is not a university. So you got to be careful about that. This was on their webpage for a very, very, very long time. This one I can't really show you because it's a video, but it was where they embedded a video into their collision repair page, and so their introduction was a video of their program. Here's what you don't want. Now, this is Mr. K, and Mr. K, it must be really cool because he goes by Mr. K and not his actual last name, so that's neat. But believe it or not, this is a welding program. And so what you can't see, because this is a screenshot, is that these are all animated GIFs, which means that the sirens blare. I don't know why there's sirens there if it's a welding thing, but nonetheless. And the clock spins and the world spins and the apple does something, right? It's intense and it's silly. And so you want to make sure, if you look here at the visit number, when I screenshot this, there was over 10,000, almost 10,000 visits to this web page. Not good, right? Now here's the opposite. Here is a teacher, a culinary teacher, and they have it's the most incredible web page that this particular person made. And so there's podcasts on there. He even has for the parents, like cooking at home, and for the students obviously as well. And so it's more of a web page that's immersed in his trade, right? And then you'll notice at the very top there's the 11th and 12th grade link. And if you click on those links, he has videos of literally everything that you make in his classroom. So all he's done is when he was making creme brulee, he had one of his students sit there with the iPhone or whatever phone it is and just record him making the creme brulee. And then he just uploaded that to this web page. And if a student happened to not be in class, rather than sit there and showing that student how to make the creme brulee, his entire lesson on how to do it was recorded. And so while he can be there to facilitate and help the student with the creme brulee that wasn't there the first day that they did it, he didn't have to sit there and be there the entire time. He just had to be there to help when help was needed, right? Here's a terrible example of a building trades webpage. As you can see, way too much text. There's no way anyone's going to read it. If you go back to the F shape that we talked about, it's just going to be too much text, right? Here's another one where it's a little bit cleaner. It's fine. But once again, we have lots and lots and lots of text. However, I wanted to point out one good thing that is on this page. If you look down at the bottom, you see employment opportunities available after high school graduation. And so at least, although I would say they need to dive more into this, at least they show you the things, and they show the parents, they show the students, the types of careers that you can get after high school graduation. And then it says employment opportunities requiring 2 years specialized training after high school, physical damage appraiser. So, I would encourage them to keep on going with this, that after high school, then you do 2 year, then 4 year, right? Because there's probably a 4-year avenue just to show students and parents that they're not typecasting themselves by signing up for auto body. Here's one where I say this will impress parents with your curricular organization. And so as you can see, it kind of maps out what you're going to be teaching them. And I think this is critically important as a parent to young kids. I would love to have this where I knew what my kids were going to be learning. And it doesn't have to be anything in detail. All this is just some topics that they're going to talk about. And, there's a quiz here and this, that, and the other, right? So I want you to think about if you're going to do a web page that you do something like this. And unless you change your curriculum, a tremendous amount, this only needs minor edits each year if you keep with the same loads. Here is one. I kind of like this one because at least it has some students in it. You see many times where there'll be pictures of of labs that are completely empty. At least there's students in here and there's pictures of some of the work. As you can see, there's a vacation cabins album page. Probably needs a little bit more description on these vacation cabins, but I'm sure the students are making them. And so as a potential student, you can scroll through and see the kind of stuff that you're going to be doing. Here's the example of what I mean by not having any students in a picture. So here's a beautiful automotive lab. Just absolutely gorgeous and spotless as it should be. But where are the kids? People want to see themselves with these students. And so by having an empty shop, it doesn't really bode well for student enrollment. Now, one of the things that I'm going to ask you to do is to develop what's called a basic web layout. And so as you can see, every single web page is typically developed like this. And so you start out with kind of a layout or an outline. So you have the home page, and then the home page leads to, in this case, 5 main nav bar links. And then under those, there's additional subsections or sublinks. And so in a little bit, when I talk about the website project that you're going to do, this is what I'm asking you to do for one of the first parts is to develop this outline. So for this module, this is what we're talking about doing. You're going to use Microsoft Word or Publisher or Freehand or whatever works for you to develop that outline. And when you develop the outline, I'm going to want to see that you have at least the following pages. You have a home page, you have course information such as a syllabus or course calendar, that you have a classroom or lab tour, that you have policies, procedures, rules, or forms, whatever you want to call it, and that you have your programs of study or whatever it is. And in the programs of study, I want you to have pathways to success, labor market information, that salary information, all that marketing stuff, right? Now, you can name these differently if you want to, but this is the type of information that I'm going to want to see. In addition, I want you to include 2 more pages of your choosing. So whatever else you think would be important. So you're going to have the home page, and then you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other links. All right. So you're going to develop that. And then for those pages, you're going to list in detail what would be on them. Because one of the kind of biggest problems with web pages, and the reason why I'm having you do this, is the text, right? So once you get the text written for a web page, it's just a lot of copying and pasting and then trying to get the formatting and design right where you want it. So if I can get you to get that part done, then all you've got to do is just go on to Wix or one of these other types of web pages and then just lay it out, right? Now, I'm not asking you to actually do that, but I do want you to at least get the rough layout done so that it'll be very easy for you sometime this summer or beginning of next year to develop your program website. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, and I wish you the best of luck.